All right, to discuss matters further, we're now being joined by Daniel Rubenstein from Tel Aviv. He's the current Israeli citizen spokesperson and former advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Your assessment of the ceasefire deal, how and where will this exchange be taking place? All right, we're just trying to re-establish that connectivity with Daniel Rubenstein, who's joining us from Tel Aviv. A little audio issue there to give our audiences an understanding of where we are right now. It's been a major breakthrough. The Gaza ceasefire has come into effect after over 15 months of war. All eyes are on the hostage prisoner swap that will take place in a short while from now. The deal was delayed by a couple of hours after Israel demanded the names of the hostages to be released. Hamas has given the names of 3 women hostages who will now be returned. In return, Israel is going to be releasing 90 prisoners. Now, this is day 1 of phase 1 of this ceasefire deal. Phase 1 out of 3 phases. Phase 1 out of these 3 phases has been the easiest one to implement. And this is day 1. The next set of hostages which will be released from Hamas captivity will be a week from now. Today, in a matter of hours from now, we'll be seeing the release of the first set of hostages since November 2023. All right, let us try to re-establish that connection with Daniel Rubenstein, who's joining us from Tel Aviv. Daniel, all right, we have you back. Your assessment of the ceasefire, how and when do you feel this exchange is going to take place of the hostages coming in from Gaza and the prisoners that Israel will be releasing?
It looks like the beginning part of phase 1 of the hostage release deal will take place within a few hours. Hamas has announced just past the deadline the 3 Israeli women that it will release. I think it's important to point out what an absurd situation that we find ourselves in. 15 months after the October 7th massacre, it's somehow normal that the Hamas government could send 3,000 terrorists to go house to house in Israel to gun down people at a music festival and to take hostages, and that Israel, the only way that it can get its hostages back is by freeing mass murderers from prison. This is what Hamas is demanding. It's demanding that people who carried out horrific terrorist attacks will be released. The Israeli public wants its sisters, its daughters, its mothers, its fathers, its brothers to be home. We are willing to pay a price to bring them home, but we must focus on the big goal also, which is that Hamas, this government which carried out the October 7th massacre and took the hostages, cannot be allowed to remain in power in Gaza in the future. We cannot be in peace, living in peace with a government that is calling for our destruction. Right now, we have found a way to free some of the hostages. I hope there will be more pressure on Hamas and Hamas's backers, countries like Qatar and Turkey and Iran, to encourage Hamas to release all of the hostages immediately and build a better future for the Israeli and Palestinian people alike.
Daniel, just hours ago, and this was a little earlier in the day when we started reporting on this for the day, it was said that the deal is not officially been agreed upon. It's not starting because there's been, again, there is a lapse in a complete agreement in terms of the names of the hostages. Going further from here, now let's talk about what comes next. Do you feel Israel would want the names of the hostages well in advance so that there's no further delay and things get streamlined? Because everything seems to be contingent on a lot of factors leading this entire deal, a lot of fragility. Going forward, how do you feel the next stage of exchanges is going to take place?
Well, what happened in the past 24 hours was that Hamas did not keep its end of the deal. Hamas was supposed to announce the names of the hostages that it will release 24 hours in advance of the agreed time of the release. Hamas did not do that, and there were many questions about, is this deal actually going to happen? Where is Hamas? Why are they not answering? Why are they not giving the names? So Hamas finally released the names of these 3 women. And I would predict that Hamas will continue to do this and make some sort of sick reality TV show about the names of the hostages that it will release. We don't even know the condition of the hostages that Hamas is going to release. These women have been in captivity in underground tunnels, in family homes. We don't know for 470 days. And Hamas is waiting past the last possible moment to even inform the Israeli public of who it's going to release. We have the names now. We'll see how the rest of today goes. I'm sure all of the people of Israel will be glued to their television sets to watch the handover of the Israeli hostages to the Red Cross. They will then be transferred to Egypt, and at that point, their identity and well-being will be confirmed, and the Israeli side will begin to release Palestinian terrorists from its prisons.
Daniel, now I just want to focus on the internal aspects of what's happening in Israel, because there have been some big developments on that front as well. Ben-Gvir's announcement to leave the Netanyahu coalition government. How much does this weaken Netanyahu's hold or affect Netanyahu's hold in parliament? What would be the implications?
I would say it does not weaken his hold very much at all, because a number of weeks ago, he added to his governing coalition a small party that had previously broken away from his ruling party. This party is called the New Hope Party, and it's led by the current foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar. So the prime minister has a comfortable governing majority. He did lose the support of one party as a result of the terms of this hostage release agreement, but the departure of Itamar Ben-Gvir from the coalition government may open the door for other parties that are currently in the opposition to offer their support, if not to the government itself, but to the hostage release agreement continuing. So it looks like that the current prime minister will be able to continue with his policy of releasing prisoners, Palestinian terrorists, in exchange for bringing hostages home who have been in captivity without any Red Cross visit for 470 days.
Daniel, and very quickly before we wind this, as of now, with the amount of information that is out there, if you can help us understand where exactly the exchange is going to take place. The prisoners will be brought at a specific point. Is it going to happen hand to hand? Is it happening at different locations? Where will the hostages be brought? Where do where does Hamas and Israeli officials, where do they meet? Is it going to be a face-to-face interaction? How does it really play out?
We saw how it played out in November of 2023, when there was a hostage release agreement that saw the release of children and women and other humanitarian cases. This was November 2023, and we saw exactly how it worked. So what Hamas does is it brings the hostages out of captivity to a central point that it tells the Red Cross, the International Red Cross, it tells the Red Cross where to meet to pick up the hostages. We saw last time that Hamas arranged basically a movie set with lights and cameras, that Hamas takes the hostages out of a Hamas vehicle, walks them to the Red Cross vehicle, and the hostages get in the Red Cross vehicle, which has no windows or curtains. Everyone is looking in and filming. The Red Cross vehicles then drive to the border with Egypt. Gaza has a border with Egypt. These Red Cross vehicles will enter Egypt. And there in Egypt, the identity of the hostages will be confirmed. And at this point, Israel will begin to release the Palestinian terrorists that it's agreed to release from Israeli prison. And while this is happening, the hostages will come from Egypt and enter Israel, where they will be taken to hospitals to meet their families and to begin the long and difficult path to recovery.
Thanks so much for breaking that down for us, Daniel. As you suggest, it's going to be a repeat of the process and the procedure that was followed back in November 2023. After November 2023, the next set of exchanges that we're seeing are taking place in January 2025. He is only hoping that this fragile deal remains strong enough to see it through all the phases that can be envisioned as of now. That was Daniel Rubenstein joining me from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much.
Thank you.